Yasoda Nandana Pradhana Ranjana Yasoda Jamuna Tira Manachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sagaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Sri Radha Krishna, Prabhu Govida Shyam Kunda Radha Kati Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Gang Shrimana Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to the Sam of the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, Sri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Buddhade Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, Verse 21. Gopyas Purata Kundala Kuntala Tvit Gandasriya Sudita Hasa Nirikshanena Manam Dadatya Rishabhasya Jagu Kritani Punyani Tatkara Ruha Sparsha Pramoda Gopya, the gopis, Spurat, shining, Purata, golden, Kundala, earrings, Kuntala, locks of their hair, twitch of the effulgence, Ganda of their cheeks, Shriya, by the beauty, Sudita, made nectarian, Asa, smiling, Rikshanena, by their glances, Manam, honor, Dadatya, giving, Rishabhasya, of their hero, Jagu, they sang, Kirtani, activities, Punyani, auspicious, Tat, his, Kara Ruha, of the fingernails, Sparsha, by the touch, Pramoda, greatly pleased. The gopis honored their hero with smiling glances, sweetened by the beauty of their cheeks and the effulgence of their curly locks and glittering golden earrings. Overjoyed by the touch of his fingernails, they chanted his glories, the glories of his all-auspicious, transcendental pastimes. Lord Krishna's garland had been crushed during his conjugal delights with the gopis and colored vermilion by the kumkum powder on their breasts. To dispel the fatigue of the gopis, Krishna entered the water of the Jamuna, followed swiftly by bees who were singing like the best of the Gandharvas. He appeared like a lordly elephant, entering the water to relax in the company of his consorts. Indeed, the Lord had transgressed all worldly and Vedic morality, just as a powerful elephant might break the dikes of a paddy field. My dear king, in the water, Krishna found himself being splashed on all sides by the laughing gopis, who looked at him with love. As the demigods worshipped him by showering flowers from their airplanes, the self-satisfied Lord took pleasure in playing like the king of the elephants. Then the Lord strolled through a small forest on the bank of the Jamuna. This forest was filled to its limits with breezes carrying the fragrances of all the flowers growing on the land and in the water. Followed by his entourage of bees and beautiful women, Lord Krishna appeared like an intoxicated elephant with his she-elephants. Purport according to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti, it is implied here that after playing in the water, Lord Krishna had his body massaged, and he then dressed himself in his favorite clothing before resuming his pastimes with the gopis. Although the gopis were firmly attached to Lord Krishna, whose desires were always fulfilled, the Lord was not internally affected by any mundane sex desire. Still, to perform his pastimes, the Lord took advantage of all those moonlit autumn nights which inspire poetic descriptions of transcendental affairs. Purport: it is difficult to translate into English the word rasa, which indicates the spiritual bliss derived from one's loving relationship with Lord Krishna. That bliss is experienced in the midst of spiritual pastimes with the Lord and his devotees. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti explains that great Vaishnava poets like Vyasa, Parasara, Jayadev, Lila Sukha, Govardhanacharya, and Srila Rupa Goswami have tried in their poetry to describe the conjugal affairs of the Lord. These descriptions are never complete, however, since the Lord's pastimes are unlimited. Thus, the attempt to glorify such pastimes is still going on and will go on forever. Lord Krishna arranged an extraordinary season of beautiful autumn nights to enhance his loving affairs, and those autumn nights have inspired transcendental poets since time immemorial. So here we see that after the dance, they went into the water, and then they came out of the water and again had pastimes. So there's, in many of the descriptions of the pastimes, we'll find, with the gopis, we'll find that it involves there's some general, we can say, pastimes that take place besides the Ras Lila. So one of these is the playing in the water. That's one of the pastimes that are generally described. Another, of course, is drinking. They begin drinking liquor. That's another pastime which is described. Sometimes there's also other descriptions of other things like swings and whatever like that. And there's also descriptions of other types of Ras Leelas involving machines like merry-go-rounds or something like that, where they get on these machines and they turn around, etc. So there's various differing details in the various Ras Leelas. And this is one of the features of it, the playing in the water with the gopis. Of course, even in Dwarka, there's a description of Krishna playing with the queens in the water as well. So it is not only here, but also in Dwarka that this takes place. So this particular, in this particular section, we have this one verse here, text 25, which is sometimes quoted. To show how the Lord is at once, Krishna is at once the Supreme Lord, and therefore he is aptakama, he is completely satisfied in himself. And at the same time, he arranged this whole affair with the gopis in which he enjoyed and they enjoyed, and he got great pleasure from this, which indicates that it looks like he wasn't self-satisfied, that he had to extend himself to others. But this is not only the case with the gopis. This desire to have pastimes is there with all the different devotees in Vrindavan and in Dwarka and other places as well, and even with other forms of the Lord. The Supreme Lord is one entity, but he does have a form, or many forms, and he has qualities, and he has activities. So if he's simply self-satisfied, he wouldn't even have any activities. He would be complete existing. So therefore, even the form would have no meaning, really. Why have a form at all? And then we end up with Brahman. This is something which is basically self-satisfied. It doesn't need form, doesn't need name, doesn't need qualities, doesn't need anything. But we know that when we define the Supreme Lord as Bhagavan, then one of his features is he has pastimes. He has form, he has qualities, and the pastimes are in relation to devotees. We cannot have pastimes without devotees. Of course, we have pastimes with material nature, like creating the material world. This is the pastime of the Lord in relation to the material world, but that's a secondary pastime. In Vaikuntha, there is no material world, so that pastime doesn't take place. So in Vaikuntha, we have activities, but the activities are in relation to devotees. And this gives rise to a different type of bliss than simply self-satisfaction, satyakam or aptakam or whatever, atmarama. In fact, greater bliss is derived from this. So, therefore, though the Lord is full of ananda by his nature, that ananda is expressed first through his form, qualities, and activities, and then in a relationship with his devotees in the spiritual world. So that is how his ananda is expressed. So if it's all self-contained, we can say it is more or less like Brahman, very peaceful, but the extent of bliss is quite limited in that way. So bliss is expressed through relationships, and the relationships are with devotees. So we have countless devotees in the spiritual world, and therefore we'll have countless pastimes to express this. So we have various types of devotees because of that. Various devotees are individual jivas, so they have individual natures, individual desires, individual expectations of the Lord. So the Lord responds to all of these different jivas by performing different types of pastimes. Of all the different pastimes, those with the gopis are considered to be the most intense in form of bliss. And among those blissful pastimes, the Ras Leela is one of the ultimate pastimes of bliss, expressing that bliss through dancing and singing and joking, etc., and other activities. So that is why the Ras Leela is glorified so much as the center of the Bhagavatam, because it expresses the bliss of Krishna in its highest peak with the gopis. So, therefore, the pastimes of the Krishna with the gopis is not breaking his self-sufficient nature or whatever. It is an expression more of his primary nature, which is more than being self-satisfied, and that is to express his bliss. So he does it in relationship with the gopis here, and not with one, but with millions of gopis. So in this way we have a description carried out here. So the particular verse here, number 25 it is, okay? So though it appears that the Lord is not self-sufficient because he is extending himself with pastimes, with jivas, etc., if he were to do so, even then, we should expect that it is done in a very glorious way. So the nature of Krishna is when he performs his pastimes with his devotees, it is done in a spectacular way, but also in a way which is, we can say, worldly, and very much like the activities of this world. So in other words, he does not display the wealth and power of the Supreme Lord when he displays his bliss. It is done in such a way that it could be interpreted as material activity. Just as people have dancing in the material world to express their joy. So here we have Krishna expressing his joy with the gopis in the same way. And we have love affairs in the material world, and here we have love affairs with the gopis. So again, it looks very material. So the nature of Krishna is difficult to understand for many people, and when they see these pastimes, then they interpret them as material. Why is Krishna acting like a normal person in the material world with affairs with the gopis? And they will criticize. Now, this is not proper. If we do these activities in the material world, people will criticize. So why would the Lord do such activities? He should set a very good example for everybody else and not do such activities. So, in other words, they project all the criticisms of activities in the material world upon Krishna because it looks like he is doing very material activities. But this is not so. Krishna expresses himself in this particular way, which may appear to some people to be material, but actually it is completely different. And the reason is, of course, is that the Lord himself is never contaminated, for one thing. And secondly, the persons who are participating in these pastimes with Krishna are the most qualified. If the Lord has pastimes with anyone, they are very special. He does not have pastimes with people in the material world, except with demons when he kills them. But other than killing demons, he doesn't associate with material people at all. So when he has pastimes of joy with devotees, they are highly qualified. And even if they're on levels of, Anarjana, Virtya, Nisarutya, Sakti, the Lord does not have pastimes with them. It's only when they get to Bhava and Prema that the Lord has pastimes, and especially in Prema. So one has to be very qualified in order to have any pastimes with the Supreme Lord. And to have more intimate pastimes with the Lord, that requires greater qualification. So that is why Sukadeva Goswami praises the cowherd boys because they have such an intimate relationship with Krishna and they play with him very, very closely. So they are glorified and they are described as having such great punya. They must have done such great punya to get such a position of playing with Krishna directly. And Sukadev Goswami glorifies Mother Yasoda. And Parikshit asks, how is it that Mother Yasoda got this position where she can intimately interact with Krishna and have him as her own child? She must have done great punyas also. So in other words, it's very rare to have such intimate relationship with the Lord. Of course, any relationship with the Lord in any form is rare, so to have a relationship with Vishnu or Rama is also rare, but to have the intimate relationships with Krishna is even rarer, to have that relationship with the Supreme Lord of that form. So they must have be very, very qualified to do that, more than the regular devotees of Vaikuntha. So the most intimate pastimes are the pastimes with the gopis. So therefore, they have to be the most qualified of all, more qualified than even the parents and the friends. They're more qualified for intimate relationships with Krishna and Madhurya Rasa. So the devotees are most qualified, and therefore Krishna has intimate pastimes with them. So therefore these are not material activities. Any relationship with the Lord with any devotee is non-material, and if it is in prema, definitely no touch of material energy. And if it was with Krishna, with the most intimate devotees, then they have to be of the highest caliber, with the highest type of prema, in order that this take place. So it has nothing to do with material sentiments. It actually is an expression of the highest type of prema, the most intense prema. So it is not material kama at all. It is the opposite. So, of course, there is similarity. And therefore in Chaitanya Charitamrita there it is said that prema is a transformation of kama. Not because there is some similarity there in terms of relationship, but there's a great difference also. And because in kama there's no Lord at all. And in prema the center is the Lord. He is the center of everything. And there is no self-interest involved. In the material world, with kama, every individual has his own desire for enjoyment. So, quite different. So, when the center becomes Krishna, and the jiva still has desire, and that desire becomes strong, 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 until it becomes the strongest, the highest level, then we have Madhurya Rasa. We have that relationship when the jiva is completely dedicated to the Lord and completely surrendered to the Lord, and there's no anarthas at all, and that surrender and attraction reaches its highest level, then we get Madhurya Rasa manifesting. So the very high position has nothing to do with material desire and material relationships at all, though it may appear to be so. So there's no fault in Krishna, and there's no fault in the gopis. It is an expression of spiritual pastimes of bliss. So, in order to do this, Krishna made some arrangements through his Shakti, or many Shaktis. So he arranged the suitable setting for this. So the first Ras Leela took place on the full moon night of the autumn season, filled with the fragrance of many flowers, with the not too hot, not too cold, with a gentle breeze from the Jamuna blowing. So all of this was arranged through Krishna's spiritual Shakti. It was not material. And so this arrangement itself is a perfect arrangement for performing these pastimes with the gopis in Madhurya Rasa. So they have become an inspiration for many poets. Now, generally, poets will discuss material things. They will praise the moon, or praise the autumn season, or praise material love affairs. But we can use that same propensity to praise spiritual relationships, spiritual settings, etc. And the praise actually is very suitable. Material poetic descriptions ultimately are a failure because everything in the material world is ultimately achit and unconscious and temporary and subject to some fault somewhere along the line. So we can praise something, a mountain or a tree or whatever, but it changes, the tree dies, the tree has bugs on it or something. There's always some fault with everything in the material world. But everything in the spiritual world is praiseworthy. It was described how there were the bees following the garlands of Krishna into the water, etc. So, of course, bees in the material world, they sting you and you feel pain. You go in the water and then the bugs there may bite you or whatever like that, or you may slip and fall on the hard rocks or whatever. So there's some problem there in the water and with the bees, etc. In the spiritual world, no problem at all. The bees don't sting at all. The bees are praising the Lord also. Everything is for the pleasure of the Lord. So everyone is glorifying the Lord and acting for the Lord's pleasure. There's no sharp rocks in the water to cut the Lord's feet or the gopis' feet. The water is the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Water is not stagnated. It is fresh water, sweet water, filled with the fragrance of lotuses and other flowers. So previously Krishna had described to the gopis, don't come into the forest because there's wild animals here, it's very dangerous, etc. But actually not true at all, because the forest was particularly arranged by Krishna to be very favorable for the Ras Leela. So that forest was a protection, like a surrounding, so that no one else could see them. And there was no danger there at all, because of course Krishna made that arrangement. No wild animals that are going to attack her at all. So the arrangement was made in the spiritual dham for pastimes, and everything there expresses that joy of those pastimes. Everything supports that joy. So the setting there with all of its elements of flowers and trees and moonlight, etc., and the bees and whatever. And then everyone there is perfect. The gopis are perfect. It was described previously they were golden, which indicates they had the most beautiful, effulgent complexions with no fault at all. And all their ornaments were perfect. Their qualities were perfect. They had no material faults at all. And therefore, they were very skillful at speaking to the Lord and dancing and singing to praise Krishna. Everything was done very, very perfectly. So therefore, when poets praise this, there's no end to their praise. There's no fault in any action or setting or whatever and person. And the words can never fully express the perfection of beauty and joy that took place in the Ras Leela. So this Ras Leela becomes an object of for poetic description. Poets like to describe this because of so many wonderful features there, a great variety of features expressing joy, and it's all perfect. So if the poet is fully qualified spiritually, then those descriptions will have great value. They can also impart to us the spiritual nature of the Ras Leela. If the descriptions are done by people who have very material minds, they actually cannot appreciate the Rasa Leela or the spiritual nature of the love of the gopis at all. They will think it's all material. And consequently, those descriptions will be of no value because they'll give us a material impression. So, though many people may be inspired by the Rasa Leela and make descriptions of it, we have to go listen to those descriptions which are made by qualified devotees. So here in the purport it mentions people like Rupa Goswami, etc., or Jayadev, or Bilvamangal Thakur. So when they describe it, or Sukadev, when they describe it, yes, it is done with spiritual perception and spiritual realization. So therefore, it is fully valid. And the beauty of the words will convey not just material beauty, but spiritual beauty and spiritual rasa and spiritual bliss. So we should hear the descriptions from qualified devotees, not from materialists. Well, this, of course, obviously an experience is between two persons, and they're the ones that can, with that experience, understand it the best. However, the nature of any literature is generally to take the third person stance and to describe those relationships. There are maybe rare works which are done in the first person. I experienced this, I experienced that, then I went here, then I went there. There's some works like that, but generally it's the third person where there's a description of Krishna and his pastimes with the gopis or the cowherds or whatever. So that's the general type of description, third person description. So maybe it cannot convey fully if one is a material person, obviously, are limited. But persons like Vedavyas and Sukadev are not limited like us. So they have some perception of the actual feelings involved of Krishna and of the gopis or the cowherds or whatever. So therefore, the descriptions have potency for that reason, because of the qualification of the people who are writing these descriptions, or saying these descriptions. So it depends on the qualification of the person describing. It's a similar thing in drama. So drama is an expression of people interacting, and the audience is a third party. So nevertheless, the actors, we can say, are the direct experiencers. Let's say we have an actor of Rama and Sita. And so one is Sita, one is Rama, and they are reciting their lines and acting in a certain way. So they would be the direct experiencers of the rasa there, in one sense, of Krishna, of Rama and Sita or whatever. But that's also secondary because they never become Sita and Rama. So it's a little bit secondary there. But the audience, they look at it again as a third party. They're looking at them. But the nature of the skill of the actors and actresses in portraying those characters, and the skill of the author in using words to depict their emotions or whatever, allow the audience to identify with those characters and understand their emotions, if they're skillful. If they're not skillful, then we'll look at it and say, what is this? They're just pretending on stage, doing something, and we don't feel anything. But if they're very skillful, then they can convey a lot through the words and through the gestures of the actors. That would be there. Smiles, glances, gestures, etc., which indicate their sattvika bhavas or the vyabhichari bhavas or the anubhavas. They give expression to the inner feeling, the sthayi bhava and other emotions that are taking place, the internal emotions. So it's all done through acting skill. facial expressions, etc., and acting gestures of the body, etc. And through that they convey the inner emotions, that is the sthayi bhava and the vyabhachari bhavas, etc. So it is, and then the audience will get some feeling for that. If the actors are fully qualified, and if it's a spiritual subject, then we need spiritual persons to convey that. If the actors and actresses are spiritual persons, devotees, and they understand the nature, then when they're skillful, then they can convey that spiritual experience to the audience.
If you see in the olden days, the sages and rishis, to perform sadhana, they select a nice place, hut and a river, mountain. So like it is a description like this, so they can think of the Lord more. But we see now some questions arise in modern cities, how we can get that same. So many devotees want to go to Vrindavan, do sadhana, or go to
Badrikasha. That is actually recommended. It says one of the 5 powerful elements in bhakti is like hearing, chanting, and worshipping the deities, association with devotees, and living in the Dham. So it's actually one of the principal items. Of course, to live in the holy Dham is not, everyone cannot do that. So then, what is the arrangement we can make? So at least the idea there is that there should be some spiritual environment somewhere. So one is any temple is okay. Another is in your house you make a spiritual environment. So if one has a temple in the house, then that is also makes it spiritual. Or another method is when you practice and chant and whatever, you meditate on the Dham. So that's Jiva Goswami's recommendation. If you cannot live in the Dham, you meditate on the Dham. And then, of course, your meditation becomes as good as living in the Dham. Of course, we can live in the Dham and also not be there if we're materially conscious. So we can go to the Dham and say, I'm spiritual, but if we have material consciousness, it's all useless. So it depends on the, the attitude of the person. So if he is not in Vrindavan, but he has a spiritual attitude and he meditates on Vrindavan, then it's as good as being there.
That's why the Narottam I think said that wherever this Nama Sankirtan or Detour Shiva or Sarvigam Sapilot is going on, that place is not different from the Dhamma. I think Narottam said that maybe.
Yeah, well, obviously, if we do spiritual activities and our consciousness is spiritual, then in a sense we're in the spiritual Dham, so it doesn't really matter. But the only idea there of living in the holy Dham as an Anga of Bhakti is that it's a very favorable type of influence on us if we live in a holy place. Yeah?
So do you
and
mean,
we are a devotee at the same time.
So do you mean that that holy place means only Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwaraka or Jagannath Puri? That's the holy place. The other places is not, we cannot consider
There can be other
place.
places, but generally because we're concentrating on Krishna in Vrindavan, then we would like to go to Vrindavan. And then we can remember all the different activities and all the different places there.
But same thing can be happen in India, wherever we are staying, like, we can meditate in the same, although our body may be in the, other places, but our mind, consciousness
so that's
can
why
be.
he said, Jiva Goswami says, if you cannot live there, you meditate on it, wherever you are, and it becomes the same. Then through that meditation, it's like living in the Dham. We can, Yeah. Well, of course, it's not automatically simply by dying in a place that you attain it. But what is indicated is if you died there, hopefully you had devotion so that you stayed there and spent the rest of your life there, the last part of your life there, doing devotional activities. If you go to Vrindavan and do sinful activities and whatever, and you're a big demon and die there, that you don't expect to go to the spiritual world because of that. So it's an indication of your dedication to the Lord if you die there. Obviously it means that if you're going to die in Vrindavan, hopefully you're thinking of the Lord also. So then you go to the Lord.
But there is one more explanation is that in Mathura Mahatmam, if someone just stay one night in Mathura, he go to the spiritual or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how to understand this statement
Well,
again?
power is there, but then there's also conditions attached to it, like chanting the name of the Lord once so much happens like this. Oh yes, it is there, and it can do it, but then there's also conditions attached. So if you chant purely once, then we have much greater effect, and whatever like that. So if one goes to the Dhamma in any condition, fine, it has some influence on you. If you're a demon, even then, probably it has some influence on you, but little. If you're a devotee, then of course much more influence. And if you stay more than one night, then of course you get more influence, so various degrees. But definitely has some influence. And if you stay one night, even if you leave after that, and it's a Gyata Sukriti, still it has influence, and eventually you become a devotee because of that.
But then why saying that, is go to Vaikuntha after end of this life? After end of this life, he go to Vaikuntha. If someone stays just one night in a Mathura.
Yeah. So, as I said, various conditions are there by which it could happen. One is you become a devotee, and then you perfect yourself, and then you go to the spiritual world. One is somehow you may get the mercy of Krishna by staying there, special mercy, and you go there. But the normal case is we have to do sadhana, and we have to go through the process, and we get to prema, and then we go to the spiritual world. That's the normal process. But it's very favorable that if we go to spend a day or night in the tirtha or whatever, it may have a great influence to make us into devotees and lead us to that perfection.
Another question I want to see here. Now, after Rasalila, this all the gopis, Krishna, they all go to Yamuna and take bath. Now, normally, after Rasalila, they are feeling like a fatigue. After fatigue, to remove the fatigue, they are going to Yamuna. Normally in this spiritual world, there is nothing called fatigue like that because...
Oh, there is what is called the shrama as one of the Vibhachari bhavas. Fatigue is a Vibhachari bhava. A spirit, which is one aspect of spiritual, prema. So this is not physical. It is something to do with their emotional nature. And it is spiritual, fully spiritual. So it is a Vibhachari bhava which creates a variety within the prema.